Okay, here's the next PowerPoint lecture on the theoretical perspectives of sociology. I realize fully anytime you mention the word theory to students, they start yawning and rolling their eyes and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to pull my hair out my hair's out one at a time. This is going to be awful. Now, the book does talk about the theoretical perspectives, and they're important to understand because they give us a framework for understanding and trying to understand and comprehend what happens in society. So what I'm going to do is kind of talk about the three major theories. Your book also in chapter 1 does this for you as well. We're spending more time in the beginning part of this book in chapter 1 on purpose because it really does lay a good groundwork for understanding what we're going to be dealing with as we go through the course. So there are three main theories in sociology: structural functionalism, symbolic interactionism, as well as conflict theory. And we'll kind of take those one at a time here. Now we'll talk first of all about structural functionalism. This theory in sociology, which was put forth by people like Merton and Parsons, you can read about them in your textbook, views society as composed of various parts. Society is like a machine, if you will. And the machine has all kinds of parts. If one part of the machine isn't working properly, it affects the entire machine. Think about your human body, for example. If your head hurts or if your stomach is hurting, everything else may be working fine, but that headache or that stomach ache is going to impact how you function overall. So that's what functionalism is about. You can kind of stop this and read it, if you will, pause it. I'm not going to read all these to you, but you can think of society as kind of like an organism, or kind of like a car. If one part of your car isn't working, whether it's the motor, maybe it's your alternator, it's going to affect the way your car runs. It's not going to go anywhere, even if everything else is working well. Same is true with society. If one institution in society isn't working well, for example, if public education is a mess in our state, then it's really not going to matter that our economy is good or that our other institutions are good, because it's going to have a negative impact on the entire society. If our political system, for example, is a mess, and we have warfare or we have anarchy where there's no organization, it's going to affect every other part of society. So everything has to be running well together for the body to work. You do not have to memorize the parts of the body, by the way. I'm just using this as sort of my example or analogy. The organs of the body, for example, the muscles of the body, the bones, they all have to be working well together in order for the body to feel good. All these parts of a vehicle, everything may be running perfectly, but if the motor isn't running properly, it affects the entire vehicle. Same for society. The functionalist perspective says that if one part of society is sick, whether it's education, whether it's the family, whether it's religion, then it's going to affect the entire society. So again, you can kind of stop and pause these and read them as you want. With functionalism, I'll end this theory by saying this: if all the parts of society are functioning smoothly, then we have achieved what is called equilibrium. If some of the parts of society are not functioning smoothly, then society is said to be in dysfunction or disequilibrium. And as often is the case, very rarely, or if ever, will you find a society where everything is running smoothly and perfectly. There's always dysfunction or disequilibrium. Now, the second of the three major perspectives, referred to as symbolic interactionism. You think about, I don't know why I have those weird sound effects, but if you think about Max Weber and his ideas of subjective meanings, we interact with each other, individual to individual, and in small groups through series of symbols, hand gestures. Everything sort of symbolizes something. The language that we speak, the letters, the sounds that we make, all symbolize very specific meanings. So this theory asks the question: how do we interpret other individuals? How do we interpret the meaning of interactions? How do we construct a sense of society as a whole? The symbolic interactions perspective directs sociologists again to consider the symbols and the details of everyday life. We have very specific symbols within our society, things that mean very specific things. When you see two rings, and you can pause those previous slides and get those if you want them there, these rings represent unity or marriage, fidelity. the idea of the traditional white wedding dress, chastity, virginity, purity. And you're chuckling when I say that, I realize that. So we're looking at the subjective meanings again. Now the third major theory, think of Karl Marx with his ideas of how the ruling class is taking advantage of the working class. His ideas hinge upon the idea of power. Those who have power have pretty much everything. Those without power pretty much struggle. And conflict theory is a theory that is based upon the idea of power. The conflict theory, my slides are getting cut off, so we'll make that one small so we can kind of read it. Conflict theory views society as a struggle for resources. We all compete for resources, and those that come out on top are the ones that can garner those valuable resources. Change is inevitable. It's often violent. Conflict between classes will determine social change. Some people prosper and some groups prosper at the expense of others. We get into the idea of power and exploitation and alienation and inequality. So society is viewed as this struggle for power, and the only way that things change is if people at the bottom sort of kind of fight back. They rise up and they revolt. So we're talking again about clashing. We're talking about a struggle. So a very different way, again, invoking Marx's ideas again with this theory. And you can kind of stop these and read them. Your textbook gives you a nice table on the 3 theoretical perspectives in sociology. Symbolic interactionism, functionalism, and conflict theory. I've just reproduced it here for you. Now, a couple of other ways we can look at sociology are 2 more levels of analysis. These are a little different. Macro and micro. Macro simply means large or big. Macro level analysis involves evaluating social events or phenomena that happen on a large scale basis. Macro again just means big. For example, as a sociologist, I'm going to make this big again so we can see this a little better. There we go. As a sociologist, I'm examining how much money our U.S. government wastes. And what I find is that our government wastes billions upon billions of dollars. And my focus is on the U.S. government. That's a macro level analysis. I'm looking at something that's very large scale. Now, micro level analysis, we're talking about evaluating social events or phenomena that happen on a smaller scale basis. Micro means little or small. So I'm going to make this little again because my slides keep cutting off. Don't know why. So as a sociologist, I might be looking at how much money our U.S. government wastes. Well, I'm going to look at it on a smaller level. I'm going to focus on how much the taxes increase for people in a small community in Iowa happen as a result of government spending. If I could do that, well, taxes increase for a small community because our government wastes billions of dollars. How does that impact this small, tiny community, or one street, or one household? Now I'm doing micro-level analysis. So I could go either way. I could look at the bigger scale stuff, and I can look at the smaller stuff. And either is appropriate. And that's it for that part. Thank you.